Fighting back, Johnson and Hancock have their say after the Cummings testimony.
If I may say so, that some of the commentary I've heard doesn't bear any relation to reality.
Both denied their actions had led to thousands of unnecessary deaths. The Health Secretary, accused of lying, defended his policy on care homes.
My recollection of events is that I committed to delivering that testing for people going from hospital into care homes when we could do it.
Also tonight, police find no sign of human remains under the Gloucester cafe where a possible victim of Fred West was believed buried. The TV doctor facing a supersized legal bill after tweeting an outrageous libel about Arlene Foster. And
no one told you that was gonna be this way.
Friends reunited, the 6 stars of the smash hit back together for one last time.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. The Prime Minister and his Health Secretary defended themselves today against the explosive allegations levelled at them by the former Downing Street advisor Dominic Cummings. Boris Johnson rejected claims that his mistakes had led to the unnecessary deaths of thousands of people. And Matt Hancock, who was accused of lying, said the accusations were not true. But he remains under pressure over why patients were sent back into care homes without being tested, as our political correspondent Carl Dinnan reports.
No elbow bumping today.
Hearing how the NHS is recovering from the pandemic, the Prime Minister was also nursing his government's reputation after yesterday's serious accusations from his former chief advisor.
Did tens of thousands of people die who need not have died because of your action or inaction?
No, I don't think so. But of course, this has been an incredibly difficult series of decisions, none of which we've taken lightly.
Yesterday, Dominic Cummings also said he was a witness to comments the Prime Minister has denied making.
Did you say you would rather see bodies pile high in the streets than order a third lockdown?
I've already made my position very clear on that point, and I'm getting on with the job of delivering the roadmap that I think is the sensible way forward.
Did Mr. Cummings tell the truth yesterday?
I'm getting on with delivering the roadmap that is the sensible way forward for this country.
So you're not arguing with the things he said?
The question, I make no comment on that.
But Matt Hancock didn't have that luxury, having been on the end of Mr. Cummings' sharpest criticism.
The Secretary of State for Health should have been fired for at least 15, 20 things, including lying to everybody in multiple occasions, in meeting after meeting.
First, Mr. Hancock defended himself in the Commons.
These unsubstantiated allegations around honesty are not true, and that I've been straight with people in public and in private throughout.
Did Dominic Cummings lie about you?
And then at a Downing Street press conference.
Did you tell the Prime Minister that everyone going from hospital to care home would be tested?
Of course, we committed, and I committed, to getting the policy in place, but it took time to build the testing.
But that's only one of the questions he faces from the Cummings evidence.
There are very serious allegations in relation to the Health Secretary, so serious that if true, they're a breach of the ministerial code, and that has obvious consequences. We need to get to the bottom of it. Dominic Cummings can't be the last word on this.
He won't be. There's an inquiry coming. Up until now, the success of the vaccination programme has offered ministers some protection against criticism, but they might yet need a booster shot. Carl Dinnan, ITV News, Westminster.
And our political editor, Robert Peston, is here. So, Robert, still some really serious questions for the government, but Matt Hancock in particular.
Yeah, I mean, look, he laid out his defence today, but I fear he is still in trouble. He said that the promise he gave to the Prime Minister was that there would be testing of people leaving hospital for care homes when there was enough capacity. Now, Dominic Cummings said yesterday, no, he just simply gave a promise that all patients being discharged, potentially with COVID, into care homes would be tested. And as I understand it, and I'm going to write a bit about this in my blog a little bit later, Dominic Cummings has evidence that in May, the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, was summoned to Downing Street to explain why he'd misled the Prime Minister on this point. And if Dominic Cummings has evidence that the Prime Minister felt misled in May, then the Prime Minister would take the view, we'd take the view that the promise was an absolute one. We'll protect them now and not at some distant point in the future. So this argument is not going to go away. Cummings is going to present his evidence to the Select Committee, and at that point, I think, Matt Hancock potentially faces quite a big problem.
OK, Robert, thank you. Well, there were more signs today of the wider impact of the pandemic on the healthcare system. Latest figures show a third of Northern Ireland's population are on some kind of waiting list for treatment. It is the worst in the UK, and it is putting many lives on hold and at risk, as our health editor Emily Morgan reports.
The waiting list is 3 years. We prayed a lot and we asked for a lot of friends to pray.
It is a sad state of affairs when a mother has to resort to praying for her daughter. Naomi has scoliosis, a curved spine and needs an operation. She's 14, growing and in pain, but waiting lists in Northern Ireland are so long that her family are now crowdfunding for surgery in Turkey.
When you're seeing your daughter every other day with painkillers and her not being able to get out of bed and being aching and sore, it's heartbreaking. I just want her to have the decent childhood that she deserves.
Northern Ireland has the worst hospital waiting times in the UK. More than 500,000 people are on some sort of waiting list. That's a third of the population. At the end of March this year, 57% of patients hadn't been seen for their first appointment in more than a year, and 61% who needed general surgery were also waiting longer than a year.
This is the actual area of the tumour.
Cancer specialist Dr McAleer has never been more worried. Suspected cancer patients waiting for a diagnosis don't have time on their side.
How much it grows will depend from one cancer to another, but they'll come back to the system. They'll come in with more advanced disease, more difficult to treat, more difficult to cure, and needing more surgery, more radiotherapy, even more chemotherapy.
Some patients are having to wait up to 7 years for routine treatment. The man in charge told me that is shameful, but his hands are tied without more money from the executive.
I believe in the National Health Service for what it should be. That's free at the point of use, free at the point of delivery. I can't offer that here in Northern Ireland at this minute in time. We are seeing people having to crowdfund, actually having to pay for private procedures because the National Health Service cannot deliver.
It's your responsibility to offer that.
It is, and that's what we're trying to do, but I have to do it within the scope, with the resources that I currently have.
Unless those resources change, he says it'll take 10 years to clear the backlog. There's no doubt healthcare here is in crisis. The question is anyone listening? Emily Morgan, ITV News in Belfast.
Now, tackling that backlog depends on fewer COVID cases ending up in hospital, but there were worrying signs today about the rapid spread of the Indian variant. In the past 24 hours, there were 3,500 new infections in the UK. That's a rise of 20% over the past week. Up to 3/4 of new cases could be the new variant. And our science editor, Tom Clark, is here. These numbers sound worrying. Should we be worried about them?
Here we are again saying I'm not quite sure yet is the honest answer. We've had a big rise in India variant cases again. It's now the majority of cases in England is the India variant. And they're rising as fast in the places where they're rising, and it's not across the country, faster than the Kent variant was, which, remember, was more transmissible. Some good news, however, hospitalisation data that we got today shows that the vast majority of people going to hospital with the India variant have had no vaccine at all, and those that have only had one dose. So that reminds us that the vaccines will work. But the big question, will it derail the roadmap? Is it going to spread and spread and spread? The chief exec of the Health Security Agency, Jenny Harries, said today, still not sure.
I think it is really just on the cusp at the moment. If we see cases rise, we're not clear yet quite whether that is a rise in the variant cases or taking off, or whether it's actually a rise because we are actively, quite rightly, detecting them and then challenging these chains of transmission.
So just have to keep watch on that variant, keep rolling out that vaccine and hope they can contain the cases that there are to forestall that from happening.
OK, Tom, thank you. OK, well, let's move on to other news now. And there was fresh heartache today for the family of the teenager Mary Bastet, who was last seen in 1968. Detectives were excavating a cafe in Gloucester where it was thought serial killer Fred West might have buried Mary. But no human remains have been found. Our correspondent Rupert Evelyn is at the scene. So, Rupert, what did police say today?
Well, they formally ended their investigation, which actually really happened here in the last half an hour when the tent that marked the site of a police investigation was removed. They were led to believe by a TV documentary company that was a possibility that Mary Bastet may have been buried inside this cafe, and they instigated an investigation and had a look in the cellar and found nothing. The possibility is that she may have been murdered by Fred West. Few people would rule that out. But if so, it did not happen here. And through the family liaison officer, Mary's family gave their reaction today.
We are still very sad that Mary has not been found. We were hoping to get a final closure on her disappearance so that we could put her to rest. We have been open-minded throughout this process, and we now know that the cafe can be ruled out. We can, however, hold out some hope that one day Mary will be found.
It's 53 years since Mary Bastet went to catch a bus to go and visit her boyfriend. Her disappearance has been a mystery over all that time. I'm afraid it looks tonight as though it may well remain that way forever.
Rupert Evelyn in Gloucester, thank you. Still to come on the ITV Evening News. Police investigate after racist online abuse is sent to Marcus Rashford. And a royal treat for Mila. The young cancer patient gets her longed-for visit from a princess. That and more after the break. Greater Manchester Police is investigating racist abuse against Manchester United players following the team's defeat in the Europa League final. The England star Marcus Rashford was one of the victims. He revealed that a school maths teacher was among those sending the abuse. Now, it's all prompted further calls for decisive action, as Ben Chapman reports.
No matter how disappointing the defeat,
and he doesn't!
It's a form of abuse no one should expect to receive. And yet some of Manchester United's players, including Marcus Rashford, won't have been surprised to find the torrent of racist abuse online. Shortly after the game, he tweeted, "At least 70 racial slurs on my social accounts counted so far. For those working to make me feel any worse than I already do, good luck trying." Before adding, "I'm more outraged that one of the abusers that left a mountain of monkey emojis in my DM is a maths teacher with an open profile. He teaches children." For many players, it is depressingly familiar.
You do get it, and
You get it?
Yeah, I've got it, but I just delete it and report it.
Demi Stokes is part of Team GB, unveiled today for the Tokyo Olympics. She says social media platforms need to do more to punish abusers.
You're doing that week in, week out. There needs to be a consequence, and until that happens, it's going to keep happening. And it shouldn't be the people receiving the abuse having to delete their social media.
Facebook, which also owns Instagram, told us the racist abuse sent to Marcus Rashford last night is abhorrent. We swiftly removed a number of comments and accounts for breaking our rules, and we're currently rolling out a new tool, which when turned on will help prevent anyone seeing messages like this again. But the FA's equality director told me it's not happening fast enough.
They're not taking ownership or accountability for the problem that is on their platforms. We've already had people taking their own lives. We've already had numerous stories of self-harm. And that's why a part of me goes, there's a question here about the moral integrity of the social media organisations.
Twitter also condemned the abuse.
Rashford's got a chance here!
The police are investigating, but Rashford's club, Manchester United, also urged platforms to strengthen measures to prevent what it called this disgusting behaviour. Ben Chapman, ITV News.
Now, the TV presenter Dr. Christian Jessen has been left with a huge legal bill after posting what was called an outrageous libel on Twitter. He made an untrue and completely unfounded claim that the Northern Ireland First Minister, Arlene Foster, was having an affair. Well, she has now been awarded £125,000 plus legal costs. And our correspondent Mark Mallet is at Belfast High Court. First now, Mark, this is a really big award, isn't it?
It is indeed, Mary, and Arlene Foster, well, she's well used to the rough and tumble of frontline politics, but when Dr. Christian Jessen chose to use Twitter to launch an attack and publicly trash, as the judge put it, her marriage, her public life and indeed her deep Christian faith, well, Arlene Foster fought back. Dr. Christian Jessen is best known for presenting Channel 4 shows such as Embarrassing Bodies, but his tweet falsely alleging that affair by Arlene Foster was seen by hundreds of thousands of people. Now, in awarding the damages, the judge said that he wanted to reflect the fact that any bystander who came across this needed to be convinced that this was a baseless claim. It has turned out to be a very costly tweet for Dr. Jessen, both in terms of the finances, £125,000, but also reputational damage done, with the judge saying his response to the case was wholly disproportionate and misleading to the court.
OK, Mark Mallet in Belfast, thank you. Two Metropolitan Police officers have appeared in court facing allegations that they shared photos of a double murder scene on WhatsApp. BC Dennis Jaffer and PC Jamie Lewis were assigned to protect the crime scene where two sisters were stabbed to death in Wembley last June. They are charged with misconduct in public office. And a 19-year-old man faces trial next month for the murders of sisters Biba Henry and Nicole Smallman. Now, the Duchess of Cambridge kept her promise today to a young cancer patient who's captured her heart. 5-year-old Mila Snedden was filmed by ITV News last year when she was forced to isolate from her father because of the pandemic. She also appeared in the Duchess's photo book, highlighting lockdown. More than anything, Mila wanted to meet a real princess dressed in pink. And Kate was happy to oblige, as our royal editor Chris Shipp reports.
You can probably tell from her face, but 5-year-old Mila is very excited. Right now, she's sitting in a palace in Edinburgh in her new dress. She's got a meeting she never thought would happen. Daddy, get up. We filmed Mila Snedden during the first coronavirus lockdown, in the middle of chemotherapy and separated for 2 months from her dad to keep her safe. The picture Mila's mum took through the kitchen window was chosen by the Duchess of Cambridge for her Hold Still exhibition of portraits from the lockdown. And so today, a year on, Kate and Mila finally met.
Look at you. I want to give you a big squeezy cuddle. It's so nice to meet you in person. I love your dress. You've done it well. Wowzers.
It was so good. I've never met a real princess in my life before. She really wanted to meet me. Because Daddy had to self-isolate to keep me safe from the coronavirus.
Mila had asked the real-life princess, as she calls Kate, to wear a pink dress for their first meeting, but she is on a long journey and still has regular treatment for her leukemia.
We're just counting down the months to March next year when she'll ring the bell. So, yeah.
And that's the ringing the bell is the final. That's what you're all aiming for at the moment, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. It'll be really good to get her to the end of that. Yeah.
10 months.
You blow on it, but first you make a wish.
Right, okay. Go on, then. It's been a year of ups and downs for Mila, but today was definitely an up. Chris Shipp, ITV News, Edinburgh.
Eric Carle, the creator of the beloved children's story The Very Hungry Caterpillar, has died at the age of 91. Mr. Carle wrote and illustrated the book, which was first published in 1969 and sold more than 50 million copies. He died in his studio in Massachusetts on Sunday. His family said a painter of rainbows is now travelling across the night sky. And finally tonight, the Friends reunited after 17 long years. The 6 stars of the hit US show have appeared together again in a one-off special. And the reunion didn't disappoint, with many of the classic elements that made it such a success. There was talk of love and friendship and some cameo appearances, as Stacey Foster reports.
It's the one we've all been waiting for.
We're excited?
The cast of Friends reunited for the first time in 17 years.
Look at me! I'm Chandler. Could I be wearing any more clothes?
The sitcom ran for 236 episodes in the 1990s and has been watched 100 billion times across all platforms. At Manchester's version of the famous cafe, fans, new and old, were excited to see them back together.
For me, it would be like just seeing how far they've come and the friendships, you know, and just it will be so nice to just see them all on the screen together again because it's been so long.
Yeah, and like just to see how different they are from their characters, because we've obviously watched 200 episodes of them being in character, so it's just something different.
Rachel wrote Ross a letter and demanded he read it before they got back together. How many pages was that letter? 18 pages!
Damn.
18 pages.
Front and back!
Front and back is correct!
The special episode challenges the cast to see how much they can remember, but our superfans didn't even hesitate. How many pages was that letter?
18 pages, front and back.
Smelly cat, smelly cat. It wouldn't be a reunion without some friends of friends.
When I'm missing the kids, when I'm missing the family, I put on Friends because it makes me smile.
This is from the one where everyone finds out.
Fans used to wait a week to see the next episode, but now Friends is reaching new audiences on streaming platforms. It seems in times like these, we need Friends more than ever. Stacey Foster, ITV News, Manchester.
And that's it. Julie's here at 10 from me and all the team. Bye-bye.